I'm Sophie Petit-Zeman and I'm Head of External Relations at the Association of Medical Research Charities. I've been involved in several. My first was back in the mid-90s when I was at the Mental Health Foundation, and the company were putting on a production called Cracked, which was about mental health and mental illness. And I thought there was absolutely no way you could go into schools and work with young people to understand particularly depression and schizophrenia through drama. And it was absolutely fantastic. It worked so well, and it opened up the issues, and I think really helped to reduce stigma and enable young people to feel open about talking about problems that were very, very real to them. And I was involved in briefing the actors and the educational material preparation and some of the sort of more technical advice, and also in doing some of the public performances at the Mermaid Theatre, which were really interesting. And then I didn't work with the company for several years until I came into post at the Association of Medical Research Charities, and the big issue for us at that point was the use of animals in medical research. And I felt quite frustrated by the way in which there was a very polarised debate, when actually what was quite clear was that the people supporting our member charities had much more of a sort of mixed view, in the sense that they didn't really like the idea of animal research, but they could accept that it was useful, which was really our position at the association. And I thought, where could we go to try and open up that debate for youngsters, and came back and spoke to Nigel and worked on Every Breath. And then the two subsequent to that have been Nobody Lives Forever, which is about stem cell and embryo research, and Starfish, about clinical trials. So my involvement spans about 15 years and 4 productions so far. Well, I think in a way it's by accident, but the experience doing Cracked, where I was absolutely convinced that it couldn't work, and then seeing how amazingly well it did work, it certainly meant that when I came into the job at the AMRC, and I really wanted to deal with the animal research issue in a new way, because it just seemed very unhelpful to have a sort of polarised debate between the research community and the anti-vivisectionists, and not really acknowledging the very much bigger grey area of people who can accept it but don't really like it, and wanted to have a little bit more of a woolly view about it, if you like. And so being faced with that dilemma and wanting to try and help people to understand that, I came back to see Nigel and said, can you do this? And was very convinced that he and Judith Johnson, who wrote that play, and the other 2 of the trilogy, really could do it. With Cracked, it was a case of Nigel coming to the Mental Health Foundation and seeking an expert who could be involved. So that was in a sort of consultancy role, and then getting involved, as I said, with actors and educational preparation and post-show debates. With the other 3 of the trilogy, Every Breath, Nobody Lives Forever and Starfish, it's been very much more in the development of the projects, in the workshops which have helped the playwright to write the plays, and then on the advisory boards. And that's a really important part of all the projects, because those 3 particularly have taken issues where there is a very strong debate in the scientific community. And because Why Touring doesn't have a particular agenda on any of those issues, it was really important to them to make sure that they represented the spread of views. So I think I've nominally chaired the advisory boards, but they haven't taken any chairing because they're all such enthusiastic people. But it's been really interesting to be part of a group where, for example, with Every Breath, you have people who are doing research using animals, and you have people from really quite hardline anti-vivisection groups coming together to look at scripts and actually fundamentally to agree that the scripts are balanced, and that's been a really fascinating process. I found the process, I absolutely love doing something. You know, I work in the world of science, and it's all quite dull and boring, and actually coming into an environment and working with people who are creative it's fun. I love doing it. And I've also found Cracked was extremely emotional as a play, and because the plays tend to take very much a sort of family setting and family drama, they tug at heartstrings. And the most recent play, Starfish, I can't see it without crying. It still gets me every time, even probably 20 performances later. I think in a way, I've really liked them all, and I think they've all been successful in the sense, I mean, the formal evaluations are done, which show that they help to raise people's level of understanding, and people enjoy them and people engage with them. I think, for me, probably the strongest and the most enjoyable in some ways have been the first and the last, the most recent, I hope not the last. Cracked really opened up such a difficult area, and such an area of real distress for young people. And I remember sitting in performances in schools where young people would come up, not so much in the debate, but they'd come up after the show to talk to myself or one of the other scientists who was there, and actually say, you know, I'm living at home with a mum who's got schizophrenia or a brother with manic depression, and it really gave them a sense that they weren't alone, and that was really powerful. And I think in the latest one, Starfish, one of the reasons that that's felt like such a strong performance, such a strong production, is that it's based on a true story of somebody who I know quite well in another context, and I've worked with him a lot. Lester Firkins, whose son died as a result of contracting CJD, human mad cow disease. One of the very few people who did die from it. And I've known Lester and his son Ellis's story quite well over the years, and then to see that, obviously the story really grabbed the attention of the playwright when she met Lester, and to see her turn that into something which is just so moving, as well as being able to convey the issues around clinical trials. It's a really brilliant piece of drama. I think one of the really key things is having the position, coming from the position of doing something which is balanced and which sets out arguments without telling people what to think, because you can't do that. It doesn't work. It particularly doesn't work with young people. And of course, coming from the medical research charity sector, we have a position, we have a collective position on these issues, but we know you can't just walk into a school and say to kids, using animals in medical research, fundamentally a better thing than not doing it. Ditto with embryo and stem cell research, trying to get people engaged in clinical trials. You can't just tell them what to think about it. And the way that White-Touring works, the way that it works, enables these young people to think much more broadly and roundly about the issues, and then make up their own minds. And it's been interesting for us to see, going into schools and seeing the post-show debates, how the young people tend to kind of argue themselves round to a position which is very representative of that in the general public and the adult population more generally. I think that's right. There's one forum within which, called the Boyd Group, within which the animal research community does meet, and you have people there from the broad spectrum. But I've certainly never come across it in such a sort of personal capacity, where it was a smaller number of people who really wanted to engage in the issues. And I certainly came away from that process thinking, we do have fundamentally different views, but actually there's the beginnings, the sort of seed of a sense that actually working together might be quite constructive, even if the outcome is that, you know, we would have, I guess, have taken it on the chin if the play had been very balanced, had gone out into schools, and the young people were coming back and saying, ban animal research tomorrow. We would have accepted that that was the outcome. As it happened, it wasn't. So I think the balance factor has certainly been interesting for us, that you can achieve it, and interesting for what the outcome is when the young people actually see the productions and how they end up feeling. Well, I think a very obvious topic, and it's one that we're looking at with White-Touring, is the topic of ageing, and it's a very big area for obviously the ageing population, the fact that there are going to be more older people and fewer younger people quite soon, and they're going to have to find very different ways of living. And I think also, again, from the charity sector that I'm working in, there's an increasing realisation that there are lots of health conditions which used to be essentially fatal or very life-shortening, and with increasing medical technology, people are now staying alive a lot longer. People live with heart disease, people live with other conditions that might once not have survived. So I think ageing and the implications of medical technology on how long people live are important topics, and ones that we need to grapple with. I think it would be inspirational, because I think they are inspirational. White-Touring is inspirational in terms of what it does out there for other people, and I think on a personal level it's been kind of inspirational for me to see that you can tackle science in other ways than the dry and boring ways that we're all so used to.